Welcome to the post-pay-per-view episode of ECW CyberSlam, and we begin with a look back at the events of Heatwave 6 nights ago. Joey Styles and Taz talk over a series of stills telling the story of the main event, and perhaps more noteworthy, the post-match return to ECW of Rhino. This led into the opening credits, and once they were done, the discussion continued, standing tall at the end of Heatwave, having taken out both competitors from the main event. Rhino wasn't the only return we saw on that night. During the match between Tommy Dreamer and Paul Heyman, with an outnumbered Dreamer looking on the brink of losing the match, and as a result his place in ECW, he was saved from the most unlikely source. Raven made his ECW return also, saving the career of his lifelong rival. The specific reasons for either man returning to ECW is currently unknown, but the commentators hoped that some answers would come during the course of the night. This led into the first in-ring segment of the show, ECW World Champion Rob Van Dam making his way down to the ring. He called out Rhino for the attack at Heatwave, but when Rhino didn't respond, he was instead met by CM Punk. Punk also wanted answers and demanded that Rhino showed his face. Rhino did eventually show his face, albeit making use of the new set's big screen. He told the two men in the ring that he answers to nobody and he'd talk when he felt like it. He added that Rob Van Dam and Punk didn't need to worry about why he was back in ECW, but about what he was back to take. RVD struggling to improvise during the segment, Rhino and CM Punk doing a better job. It's a 59, a good C-rated segment, and it helps to get that new storyline underway. Out of that, we go into the opening match of the night, a one-sided squash match, Lowkey picking up another win and continuing to build that momentum, a 68 rating from him, getting close to those CM Punk levels of performance, an OK 44 from Tony Mamaluke, but a key crusher is enough for the decisive victory. After the match, Lowkey stood tall in the ring, the commentators putting over that Homicide was not in the building tonight and neither were the rest of the Hustle. This was as a result of Homicide's bloody war with Sabu at Heatwave. Sabu took full advantage of this, coming down to the ring like he had at the pay-per-view and swinging a steel chair at Lowkey. While Key may have been prepared for it this time, he was quickly overwhelmed by the maniacal Sabu. He eventually rolled out the ring and headed to the back, not too much damage done, but Sabu had sent another warning shot to the Hustle, and as far as he was concerned, the war was far from over. Heading backstage, we get an interview scheduled in order to promote the main event, but both Jade and Tommy Dreamer can't help but talk about the elephant in the room, Raven's return at Heatwave. Jade pointed out that nobody had seen or heard from Raven since Sunday night, and Tommy Dreamer admitted that he was still wrapping his head around what had happened. He doesn't know whether when he sees Raven he'll say thank you, or after he hit him with a DDT in the middle of the ring, fuck you. What Dreamer does know is that he is still a member of the ECW roster, and that means he's ready to fight tonight. When Raven does want to explain himself, Dreamer will be the first in line to listen. Taking over from there, Terry Funk switches focus to that main event. He, Balls Mahoney and Tommy Dreamer facing the Extreme Horsemen of C.W. Anderson, Stevie Richards and Steve Corino. After he was beat at Heatwave by Corino, Terry Funk is out for revenge and he can't wait to get his hands on those three men. Dreamer and Funk doing well off the cuff, improvising pretty well there, and it's an improvement on the usual Dreamer segment, so obviously Funk's influence helping to bring the segment up, that's good to see. Out of that, the commentators look to move on to the second match of the night, but they hear of something going down in the back. When the cameras catch up with the incident, we see that CM Punk is laid out on the ground, his TV title laid across his back. Punk had been on the search for Rhino backstage, but it appears that Rhino, or perhaps somebody else, had got to him first. The second match is a follow-up from that filler segment at the pay-per-view, a poor match with two pretty weak performances, another one-sided match of the night, Kevin Furtig beating Johnny Swinger with a chokeslam. The main story coming in the post-match, however, as a fired-up Elijah Burke confronts Kevin Furtig, the man who'd cut off his promo at the pay-per-view. Whether through bravery or just arrogant stupidity, Burke is the first man to voluntarily step up to Kevin Furtig since he came to ECW and quickly finds out why that is a bad idea. With Angel Williams being left at the top of the ramp, Burke was outnumbered and hit with a low blow by Shelly Martinez, Kevin Furtig grabbing him by the throat and beginning to choke him out with one hand. Angel ran down to the ring to help her man, but was stopped by Johnny Swinger, who was looking to protect her. She eventually got past Swinger, but it was far too late. Fertig tossed Elijah to one side, with Angel freezing in fear in the middle of the ring. With nowhere to go, she was shockingly hit with a chokeslam by Kevin Fertig and had to be stretchered out of the building. She was not moving. The commentators put this over as a new low from the sadistic Fertig and Shelly Martinez, and we were left with no choice but to move on with the show. Heading to the back again, Paul Heyman is seen in front of the ECW backdrop. He addressed the situation from Sunday's Heatwave 2006, saying that he'll admit it. Tommy Dreamer got lucky, but he does get to keep his job in ECW. He too couldn't fathom why Raven did what he did, but promised a very special welcome back for when Raven did eventually show his face. Looking to shake his clear frustration, Paul Heyman turned his attention to the continuing fallout from Heatwave, the effects of which would be felt over the next few weeks. Not only would the Hustle and Masato Tanaka be in action over the next few episodes of CyberSlam, he had a huge announcement for next week. In the main event of that show, a match requested by Lowkey and granted by Paul Heyman would take place, the Warrior going one-on-one with Sabu. However, since this is the new ECW, and since Paul makes the rules around here anyway, if Sabu uses any weapons during the match, he will be disqualified. Bad news for Sabu, but he's going to actually have to wrestle Lowkey next week. A bit underwhelming with a 61C rating from Heyman there, but given the rest of the ratings on the show, perhaps it's not one to complain about. We then go into that main event, again not a great rating, Steve Corino leading the Extreme Horsemen against Balls Mahoney, Terry Funk and Tommy Dreamer. As expected, it's a bit of an out of control brawl, which appears to favour Funk's team until some outside involvement swings the momentum the other way. Another surprise appearance, a man recognised by Joey Styles as the Ripper, Paul Burchill, appears, taking out Tommy Dreamer on the outside. Funk looked to retaliate, but is himself taken down with a huge clothesline. With those two out of contention, Steve Corino and co outnumbered Balls Mahoney, with Corino picking up the pinfall victory. Again, not the best main event, but a good performance from Steve Corino, and in the post-match, we put over the debut of the Ripper. Joey Styles putting over that Burchill is bad news, and perhaps more worryingly, the fourth Horseman. Looking to sign off with those four men stood tall, the commentators heard of another incident in the back, the camera quickly cutting away to see Rob Van Dam's lifeless body on the ground. Like with Punk earlier, his title had been laid across him. Pulling the camera away from Rob Van Dam and towards himself, suspicions were confirmed that Rhino was of course behind the attacks. Looking directly down the camera with his trademark intensity, Rhino pointed to RVD, putting everybody in ECW on notice. Rhino is back, and he's coming to take what belongs to him. Everybody will fear the gore, and ECW fears Rhino. So a 55C- rating for the show, increasing our popularity in 42 regions, but certainly an underwhelming follow-up to the pay-per-view, particularly in terms of the in-ring action. Tonight was just about getting them new storylines going, and I think we succeeded there. Nothing from Raven yet, but Rhino making his intentions pretty clear. Paul Burchill debuts as part of the Extreme Horsemen, and next week on ECW CyberSlam, that main event, Lowkey one-on-one with Sabu.